were some of the trends as a teenager? Like what types of music, movies, or dancing?
Oh. We used to have, just regular teenager dancing, you know. What do you call that, Linda?
Did you do the jitterbug?
Yeah, jitterbug. We did
The twist?
the twist. Yeah. And waltzing. I love the waltz. That was my fun.
I was like, now we have juking and grinding.
Yeah, well,
Right on top of each other.
no, we didn't do that. We had jitterbug. We loved the jitterbug, and we had the polka and the waltz. And I used to watch Bandstand all the time.
It's Bandstand.
It was Dick Clark. Dick Clark had it on TV, and we used to watch that.
It was American Bandstand.
American Bandstand, yeah. We used to watch that, and he still talks about that sometimes on TV. Because he does that ball thing with the New Year's. And that's about it as far as the dancing.
What kind of movies were out?
Oh, jeez. We watched, I didn't really watch too many movies. I was too busy to sit down and watch TV. I don't really, wait a minute, Linda. I don't really remember. I couldn't think what I used to watch.
Oh, okay.
I used to watch Roy Rogers, Gene Autry, Bandstand, and things like that.
What kind?
Van Halen and
They were westerns.
Westerns?
Yeah, I was a western person. I'm from Southern Illinois, so
Yeah, hillbilly.
we went right along with all the western cowboys and all of that. And besides that, I had brothers, so they wanted to watch it, so that's what I had to watch.
Well, there were like a lot of westerns on TV at the time too.
Yes.
Different broadcasting. What kind of? I guess they would be TV shows.
We used to
And what kind of
live in the
slang
East
do
Heights.
you
So
Well,
we used to watch Al Capone take some people
well, see, I
back there
had
and
a
never
very
bring
strict
back.
dad, so we didn't learn it.
You know, they
My
on the
dad was a
bridge,
minister, so we didn't get to
Going
learn
out to
slang and
41,
stuff like that.
that
We
house in the
dressed
corner,
kind
we
of
used to-
slangy, you
my
know,
dad
the
used to rent,
circle
they used
skirts
to
and
get
the poodle
three-story
skirts
building there.
and
I don't know if it's still there now. And
the
if you
straight
now-
corduroy skirts that had to come
There's
down to
a
almost
little
your
creek
ankles
there,
before
and
you
you had
crossed
something
that
to dig
trail.
with, you dig them
And
slot
then we
machines
had
out
the
of there.
sweaters with
But we used to go and
the
get them out and
scarves
get that,
around
we didn't know
our
what they had.
ponytail
To make necklace
in our
out of them.
hair. That's about it. That's the way we dressed.
What were some of the things you and your friends did to pass the time?
Well, me and my
Run after
friends
boys.
and my cousins, I used to hang around my cousin
recording
more.
this.
And him, I went with your grandfather. We went to carnivals and we listened to country music there. We had a lot of country, stars at that time, which you probably never even heard of. At dances, we had dancing at Bloom. Every so often we had we had homecoming dances and stuff like that. And we had what they would call assembly. And after this assembly was gone, Howard Dorsey. You remember Howard Dorsey?
I know you.
We used to, he used to come to Bloom and play for us.
What kind of music was that?
What was that, Sean? He's into some of this stuff too. It was just like
That's rock and roll, man.
Yeah, it was rock and roll music.
That was when it first came on the scene.
Yeah,
Rock music is also a lot different now than it is when it was then.
yeah. Rock and roll was a
Yeah.
lot of jitterbug.
Remember?
Yeah.
Right here, bud.
The jitterbug.
Twist.
Nothing about a hound dog.
The twist.
Well, Elvis really came along after I was already married. So I still watched Elvis. I loved to watch him even though I was married and had kids by then. I still love to watch Elvis.
In the 1940s, there was no Bloom
I
High
actually
School.
cried when he died.
I
He
remember
died
we
in
went to Bloom High School there.
77.
Year I got married.
77, he died. And I cried like a little kid when he died. Okay, they called our dances was sock hops. We had at Bloom.
Yeah, now they call them old-fashioned.
Old fashioned.
Saddle shoes.
Yeah, we wore saddle shoes. You ever see saddle shoes?
Ain't
They're
that a
white shoes
shame?
with a black piece that goes around there.
Ain't that a
And they
shame?
called them saddle shoes and bobby socks. Actually, I didn't have a poodle skirt. Mary did. Mary had a gray one with a black poodle on it, and it had rhinestones. It had like a little chain on it, and it was rhinestones.
Hey, hey, Linda.
Oh, I missed that one.
No bra.
How has
Hey,
technology
Linda.
advanced since then?
Every time I.
Technology has really advanced. I mean, we had little bitty TVs that we had set up on almost on top of in order to see the pictures.
Dad, I'm recording this. Maybe we can hear this later.
Everything had to be done manual. There was nothing automatic about it. You wanted to change it, you had to get up and change it. You just didn't flip on a controller and it came on. We didn't have those.
So there was no computers or
No computers.
cell phones.
Oh, we had telephones. We had the black ones.
We had the
The real
dial.
heavy black ones,
The
and you had to dial
phone.
it.
Television.
The dial.
She didn't have the
phone.
one you had to go like this.
Yeah, yeah,
What
go
type of
there.
dances you and your family did together?
Mostly the families would, we would just get together and talk, have dinner. Sometimes we would have breakfast at my mom's where it would just be, you know, you'd have the gravy and the biscuits and you'd have your family all there
And for fun,
and then it was
We
the
used to
same
go drag
thing for
racing.
Thanksgiving or whatever.
bring chicken. Like a car like you got.
Why don't you shut up? You wanna do this interview?
Oh, I'm going to show.
Candy has to turn this in at school, Dad. Just so you know, she's gonna turn this in at
Save
school.
that video. I'm telling
Yes,
you.
save
I
this
want a
video.
copy of that.
I want a copy of it too.
How are roles set up in the family? Like boys did what, girls, your mom, dad?
Mom and Dad used to take Model Ts and go out and race with them. They were from Southern Illinois, and I mean, they were in the boonies. They were down in Shawnee Forest. Is where they were raised, and they would have these Model T Fords, and they had the jump seats in the back. Mom never did learn how to drive a car, but she could run. She could drive one of those, and that was about it. They'd get out and race those, and then they'd get on horses and ride horses and stuff, because they were raised out in the forest.
How are things set up in your house?
They had about the same thing, just old fashioned. The couches and stuff was the same. A lot of them we had velvet couches, a lot of velvet, and a lot of real leather, stuff like that.
How did you divide up chores?
Yeah.
About what?
Divide up chores. Who did dishes? Did Jim and John do dishes?
No, the boys, you were lucky if they took the garbage out.
Sounds like
Mom
Michael.
and Dad have to yell at them to take the garbage out, but no, I would do like the housekeeping for the main, like living room, stuff like that, and then Mary, she had to do dishes. She didn't like it, so a lot of times she would tell Mom that I didn't do my job, because she wanted me to do the dishes. So I had to end up doing both jobs. Mary was lazy, she didn't want to do it.
What kind of chores did mom and dad do?
Mom and Dad worked when I was growing up. Well, actually, when we lived in Southern Illinois, they did gardening. They gardened like all summer long, and then they would go out to like the orchards and pick apples and peaches, and then they would bring them home and can them for the winter. And me and Mom, we used to go berry picking. We had an old railroad track down behind the back of our house. We used to go in there and go berry picking. And then Mom would can it, and then we'd have berry cobbler all winter. And then sometimes you go in there, you get run out by a snake.
Okay. How was dating going
dating.
Yeah.
Like I told you before, my dad was a minister and he always watched who I dated. And I dated a lot of guys that he approved of, like Eddie Hammond. Anybody in Chicago Heights knows the Hammonds. I dated him. I dated Norman Peach, Pat Sims, and then I dated your grandfather, and he was Spanish, so my dad didn't like that. I had to sneak around and date him. Well, he was kind of an outlaw. But yeah, I knew him. But a lot of ours, see, my brother and I, we used to go double dating. So I ended up dating guys that was like 4 years older than me.
You go, girl.
Yeah. But I used to go out with my brother. You know, he
Should have had
would
this
go
here
double
recorded a long
date.
time ago.
Yeah, we set curfew and
And not as long as I was with my brother. Of course, we couldn't stay out till early in the morning and stuff like that. But as long as I was with my brother, my dad and mom was okay with that. So I guess that's why I mostly double dated with him. And the girl that he married was my girlfriend before he went with her. She was my girlfriend.
How were you treated marrying a Hispanic at that time?
That was not really allowed during that time. That's why my dad had such a fit when I was dating your dad, because he said that he did not want me marrying to a Mexican or a Spanish guy. You had to go with Caucasian, and that's why he didn't say too much about Norman Peach and Eddie Hammond and them, because they were Caucasian. And actually, Hammonds, what were they?
Sweden.
No, they was not
Europe.
Swedish.
Well, you liked them.
No.
I love
This is great.
it. I love
Let
it.
me think about this.
This is great.
If you were sour, you wouldn't have nothing to do with them.
No, they were not. They were dark skinned. They were dark skinned people. Jews. They were Jews.
Oh,
They
well,
were
that
Jewish.
figures. That would explain them nowadays.
Yeah.
Ken, you're gonna have to edit the hell out of this. You know that, don't you? I just swore. Anyway. Oh. Be nice.
But mostly I dated like Pat Sims, Norman Peach. They were Caucasian, and my dad did not like, like Jewish or Spanish or anything like that. No Italian.
How do the people around you treat you?
The people around, well, they were the same as my dad, because they did not want me dating. I had even problems after I married your grandfather, because I was Caucasian and he was Hispanic. And we had a lot of people that would cause us trouble trying to get us separated, and they were mean to, they were actually mean to your grandfather because he was Hispanic. And they didn't want me to be married to a Hispanic.
And how did his family feel about him marrying a white woman?
They felt the same way. They just started liking me in the last 5 years. And we've been married 50 years.
Did you ever get kicked out of anywhere for being with a Hispanic?
Out of an apartment. I went to,
Racial discrimination.
we went to rent an apartment over on the hill, which was mostly Italians and Polish. I went with your grandfather's brother. He had just came home from the Korean War. And we went looking, he took me looking for an apartment. We found one over on the hill, which anybody from that area would know where the hill was. They were mostly Italian and Polish. And when we went in there, and I talked to the guy, and he interviewed me, well, he gave me the apartment until he found out that I was with a Hispanic, which was your grandfather's brother. And he turned around and said I couldn't have the apartment.
and all that I left was how has school changed since.
I don't think schools have changed that much.
Math.
Oh, math?
Yeah.
Yeah. I could do math very good.
They didn't have that back when I went to school.
They didn't have algebra, they didn't have geometry, they didn't have.
Yes, they
these
did.
things.
They didn't have no
Long division and
computers.
stuff like that.
They
Wasn't
had
that-
We
wasn't that
had
taught-
long
It
division.
was taught as new math, wasn't it?
No, new math came later. After I had already got out of high school, the new math came in. I had to do the old math, long division, multiplication, and I could do all of that, but then they started with the algebra. When they started the algebra, I wasn't very good at algebra. Even today, I'm not good at algebra. But I got A pluses in math. And they put me into an algebra, and I dropped from A plus to like a D minus. So they decided that to put me back into general math. That's what they called it at that time.
What are some things that are done now that would be considered really dangerous back then? Or just crazy?
I don't know.
Well, I mean, like now tattoos are really big and piercings.
Oh no, we could not have no tattoos. No tattoos, no ear piercing, and especially me, because I was married. My dad was a minister, so he was very strict with us girls.
So you couldn't even have one piercing?
No.
No?
No tattooing, no.
So what did the teenagers do to get in trouble? What did they do? Like our kids nowadays, oh, I'll go get a tattoo or I'll get a piercing. What did you guys
No,
do
we
to
didn't
rebel
do
against your
that.
parents?
We went out riding
You just-
Fast cars.
yeah,
We went out drag racing.
Drag racing.
yeah, we went drag racing, which my dad would have never let us do, but we used to go ghost hunting. You ever go ghost hunting?
Yes.
You get in a car and you drive out like over here in Indiana. They got a place over there that is, they say the bridge is haunted by a ghost. And we used to go over there to see if we could find the ghost. And then we would go out riding like way in the deep country where you'd find people set silly things up and they would put like barrels in there. Then they would dare you to hit that barrel because you didn't know if somebody was in it or not. And just stupid things like that, jumping
I
off
used to
bridges
whack-
and
I
stuff
used to
like
whack
that.
on- I had a
What?
50 Buick. Boys going over the place.
Drag racing, we did a lot of drag racing with my brother.
Yeah, I don't give a
Because I would go with
damn.
Ralph
Yeah,
in
no
his car
business
and
in
then
that
he would
barrel.
take his
You know,
girlfriend
somebody
and
would've done
his,
that.
Yep.
Did you get
and
in
we
there?
would go out drag racing
Be in the car with him?
It'd
with
be like you
Ralph,
standing behind your car
not
and
my
you
brother.
You know?
We were drag racing with him.
In your time, who was your heroes? Who did you look up to?
It was a 47 Chevy.
My dad.
He was over in the cornfield.
We didn't have very many heroes then, no.
Drink beer and get high.
Okay. Well, actually, what historical events were you there for?
Historical events. Well, I remember when John Kennedy got shot. I was ironing, and my cousin came over, and she said, Barb, she says, Kennedy just got shot. We don't know if he's dead or alive or whatever. And I remember Johnny being at my feet, a little baby, not really little, but he said that he could actually remember, and he was not much more than a baby. He said he could remember it because of the way that my cousin came in and said it, you know. And I was ironing, and he was sitting down by me, and he said to this day he can remember it.
Wow. 'Cause I don't remember anything.
Do you know I was
Say
3 years
9/11.
old? I was 3 years old when that happened, and I can remember that too. I remember her coming through the door, and I remember everyone crying.
There's lots
I
of
remember
other
the
things
TV
that
was
happened
on
that-
nonstop. I remember
when
that.
you were alive that you'll look back on.
Yep, I was only 3 years old, and I remember
Followed
that because it was so
communism and
tragic.
stuff.
We went for coffee.
That's huge. When we were kids, Russia was
Hey, wait a minute.
communist. It's not
We
now.
went for
It's a
coffee.
Democrat. It's
Russia
democratic.
was communism for a long time.
Your whole life? I mean, you had to worry
Yeah,
about Russians.
I mean, we were always worried about communists, you know,
Always.
coming over and taking over the U.S. We worried about that, and then we seen the Berlin Wall fall. So,
Wow.
and even these kids, your uncles and your mom, they can remember that.
Then we had a black house.
during World War II.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, World War II, we had
You hear the
blackouts.
airplanes coming.
They would have sirens and stuff going off, because they didn't know if America was gonna be bombed or not.
You
I had
had cover,
uncles.
you know that, you had cover.
I had uncles that was,
For the
in World
reflection,
War II.
or polymeros,
Yeah, one
windows?
was in the Navy.
you can get it
two
up
was in
and
the
find
Army.
So then we had to do with drafting too.
Yes. They drafted them into the service. My uncle was lucky because he was a barber on a ship, so he didn't have to worry too bad unless, they had to protect the ship that he was on. But my uncles was in the Army, and they were in Germany, France and Belgium. And it was in papers all over the United States when my two uncles met in Belgium, and one walked up to the other one and asked him for a cigarette light. And when he flipped the lighter on, it was his brother.
Wow.
Didn't you have a brother that went to the Vietnam War?
Yes.
My brother-in-law that went to Korea.
I had in all of the wars, I had relatives that was in all the wars. Marcus Slam was in World War II. My brother-in-law was in Korea.
And you have a son who's a Marine now, we understand?
Yeah. And my brother was in Vietnam, and my son was a Marine.
Is a Marine.
Is a Marine. Was a Marine, always a Marine.
Is a Marine. All done?
Well, she asked me to ask. You were probably real little during the Depression.
I was about 3 years old.
Yeah.
I can still remember the effects of the Depression. That's when my dad worked on WPA, and that's how we got our food. He worked for the government, and then the government would pay him like every 2 weeks.
That's the Depression. I get paid every 2 weeks.
The WPA was one of the work programs put in by Franklin Delano Roosevelt. That's what it stands for, Works Progress Association?
Administration.
Administration, you're right. Work Progress Administration. The only one that's existing today is the TVA, Tennessee Valley Authority. It's an electric company for Tennessee that was started under Franklin Delano Roosevelt after the Depression. Papa worked for the WPA in southern Illinois, built laying rail.
He laid rail all across southern Illinois.
It's important stuff to know. Especially when I'm thumbing through books and I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
what's this?
Yes,
Dad grew up in a segregated society. He realized what that means. It means he could not go in the front door. He had to go in the back door. He could not use the white water fountain. He had to use the colored water fountain. Couldn't use the white phone. Had to use the colored phone. Couldn't sit on this side of school. Had to sit on that side of school. Couldn't sit in the front of the bus. Had to sit in the back of the bus.
Couldn't talk to the white girls.
Nope. And then he married one.
When we lived in Cary Mills, we used to go to the movies in the afternoon, and usually on Saturday afternoons. Mom and Dad let us go to the movies. But the blacks were allowed to, they had to sit on a different side of the theater, and they was not allowed to cross over. And they lived in the eastern part of our town. They could not come down into town just to do their shopping and to leave.
Yes.
That one guy that they just exhumed his body.
Emmett Till.
He got into trouble because they accused him of whistling at a white lady, and they shot him.
Mississippi Burning. Emmett Till. That's ridiculous.
I remember when that happened. I remember because it came across the news. They were not allowed to mingle with the white people at all, none whatsoever. And you were never seen with a black person. Now, when I was going to Bloom, I had two girls that was two girlfriends that was really good to me, and both of them was black. And I got ridiculed at Bloom because they were black and I was hanging around with them. And even even to this day, their brother comes out to my house in Willetts and he fishes out there.
I met him.
Me too.
Very nice family.
That was still when you were in high school.
Mhm.
They hadn't desegregated yet. She graduated in 1957.
Yeah, I was in
I
57.
gave my mama gave when the white man gave something to eat him. You look in the book. Yeah, people from the Blackfoot used to eat the one,
Oh yeah, they would.
cook them.
What?
Yeah.
We don't want to hear about the Blackfoot Indians.
Because we were terrible Indians.
Oh my God, I
Terrific
get
Indians.
hungry.
But we're the best Indian there is. You
Hey,
don't
Linda.
mess around
But
with it.
actually,
Oh,
I
you're
really
hungry.
enjoyed growing up into
Well, I think I
in
get the
that
savage.
era, because a lot of things that still is history today was made in that era.
Like
And,
what?
oh, we just went through all that, Candy.
Fall of communist Russia.
Yeah,
That's a huge-
communism and.
uh,
We were, like I told you, we were worried about communists. Cause that was a big fear when we were growing up, is communism.
Just like right now, the media makes everybody so desensitized, I guess. Like now, people my age can't tell you what's going on in the news or anything because they just care about music and movies.
Cars.
Actually, you should study history because history is, I mean,
Well,
everybody should know
repeat
your
yourself.
history.
Can repeat
Yeah.
itself.
I have always studied history. I loved history. I got A's and B's in history. I loved
History
history.
gonna repeat.
I love science.
Complete opposite of me. I hate history, science, and math.
No, I
Where
didn't,
were you at? Who are you?
Actually, you could see so much on TV that was making history that you lived it, so you didn't really have to worry about studying that much other than before you were born. Because in the 50s and the 60s, we had a lot of history come down.
Yeah.
So, actually, we lived it.